Yeah, buddy, you already know top of the top, and it won't stop, you dig? So listen, right now, and I want to say for years, it's been a conversation. This isn't really a new conversation in terms of quote unquote DEI, affirmative action, and so forth. Listen, and this is me speaking as a man, as a black man, okay, as an FBA melanated man, I've watched the shift throughout the years. And what people fail to realize is that it was a coveted few that, in terms of us as African Americans, FBA, black, so forth, that got into certain positions through hard work, dedication, and so forth. Now, this exceeds beyond color. It's more in character and content. However, we've always been the ones that have had to work 10 times as harder, more than our counterparts. Okay, so this is something that people don't tend to speak on or observe. We've had to accept the criticism more than we gain the praise. Okay, we had to work 10 times as harder to establish our name. Fast forward, we're in a generation where it's kind of the opposite, right? And this kind of leans towards what I spoke about in terms of Gen Z and their lack of effort and so forth, and DEI. Okay, this goes into the conversation of DEI. Listen, I came up in a time where your leadership was crisp, they were sharp, on point. They weren't necessarily trying to be hip, or woke or anything like that. It was about the bottom line at the end of the day. And I think we've strayed away from that in terms of performance. What's happening is it's gone beyond quote unquote race and so forth. Race plays a factor. Don't get it twisted. Race and gender plays a factor, but it's more so a lack of character and a lack of experience that's coming into these spaces. And they don't have the background, they don't have the history, and they don't even have the wherewithal in terms of navigation. So now you have to go back to the quote unquote the leadership. Okay, it's not necessarily the talent per se. Put it to you this way: when you see a company that has constant turnovers and there's a lack of consistency, you got to go to the leadership. Okay, and it's not necessarily the people under the leadership. They're an end result of what you see. Okay, in terms of Gen Z and people who are not capable. And what's happening is you have people that are just bringing in folks based on vibes, and that's not what the bottom line is about. And I come from an era where, our shoes had to be shined. You better have your necktie on and your pants creased. Okay, that's the era I come from. And I'm talking about in my early 20s. All right, so I was fortunate to be around the best of the best, the cream of the crop in terms of education and leadership in various fields. And a lot of your new talent, they don't have that strong backbone or background. I read something recently where they said that millennials that just graduated from college are looking for gigs or positions that are paying 100 grand, okay, 100K, even though they're being offered 65K or whatever the case may be. My thing is this: what makes you think you're worthy of 65K? All right, let's talk about it. Because my thing is, if you don't have the history and the background, I take a look. I'm the type of person, I look at everybody. I cross-examine everybody, whether, it's the leadership or the people that work next to the leadership on down to quote unquote the little man. And if I see if your people that are on the ground aren't on point, I can only look to the leadership, as having major flaws and overlooking certain fundamentals. Okay, I'll give you a case in point. I remember one time I was at a space, and it was funny. It was corporate space, and I cross-examine everybody and everything everywhere I go, and that's a part of survival. You have to read the room, right? So what I did was I greeted everyone, but I also look at body language. I look at the style of dress. If you're the type of individual that has a lot going on in terms of tattoos and so forth, and to each is own, but when I see you in a certain space, I expect a certain projection in terms of your outfit, your presentation, and so forth. All right. So when I get there, I kind of look at everything and because I'm the type of person, I'm a cross-examine you. I don't care who you are. I want to see if you're really about that life. You dig? So fast forward, I get there, and basically I introduce myself and whatnot, shake hands, with the staff. However, the real revelation is when you go into the break room. So I see this individual, this woman, basically, doing too much, basically. Because, in terms of certain types, I know why they hired them, right? So, because there's certain types that they hire that don't really serve a purpose, but they do serve a purpose, right? So I get in there or whatever. So, the chick got the weave and, not really dressed in corporate type gear. She's just, the clothes was too tight, for a corporate gig. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, wow, okay. It was more like she was dressed for the club, right? So it wouldn't be my kind of club, but it is what it is. So fast forward, I'm in there and I'm peeping the conversation. So on the other side, you got this dude spilling tea, and I'm funny about dudes spilling tea. It's like, bruh, knock it off. But it gave me a gauge of what type we're dealing with here. Your low grade type. So fast forward, I stay to myself, give a couple of nods, and that's about it. Now fast forward, I get about a couple of days later during training, the supervisor, has me, reaches out to me and says, "Hey man, come to my office." So I said, "Okay, no problem." And I could see he's not necessarily the old school shined shoes type. You know, he's very, how can I put it? Very free spirited kind of individual. Okay. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, I know where this is going. I'm coming here with this professional demeanor and so forth. And then we got the crew spilling tea back here. Okay. So not being productive and so forth. And it is what it is. So fast forward, he says, we got to let you go. And in my mind, I'm thinking, of course, this is beneath me. Okay. Because the thing about it is, when you've sat with the top brass, the cream of the crop, you're kind of buying your time for the time being. In certain spaces that are beneath you in the leadership, it's like, you don't really have it. I know what it is. And so for me, it was a thing where it was like, hey, I appreciate the time and the opportunity. I kept it moving. And this was during the pandemic at the time. So I knew I wasn't going to, be there that long, just looking at the activity that was happening, at that particular site. But it also had me thinking, wow, they just bring anybody up in here, right? So for me, it was like, I looked at it from a perspective of like, wow, I could see why a lot of companies have turnovers, because they're not bringing in real talent, because the people up top aren't talented. Okay. It's same thing with the music business. There was a venue that I worked at, or I was working with, not worked at, but working with in collaboration. And I noticed the people that they were booking. And I'm like, and no hateration, because I'm better than all of them. So, and they ain't never proved me wrong. Yeah, I'm cocky. It is what it is. But fast forward, I'm looking at who they're bringing in, and I'm like, whoa, are you serious? But while me, on the other hand, I was bringing in a lot of talent from my personal network. Okay. And helping revive the image of that particular venue. But what was happening was the so-called leadership or management, of that venue was taking credit for, and not giving, putting my name out there and saying, hey, that Mr. Unique was the one that brought these relationships up here. You know what I mean? Like, so that's how I knew it was poor leadership. No shade, but I'm just only telling the truth. So from my network, I was the one bringing in the leadership. Everybody kind of like followed suit with me, because they weren't used to anything like that before I came in the picture. And that's always been my MO. If you didn't know me before, you're going to have an experience that you've never witnessed before in terms of leadership, direction, and experience. And I'll grab my nuts on that. You know what I'm saying? And anyhow, fast forward, this quote unquote person of leadership, loving the pieces, but it was like, I knew they were new at it. They weren't seasoned. Okay. So I'm looking at it from that angle. I can tell when somebody is not seasoned and they're not a vet. I cross-examine everybody. Okay. Because I've been around the bosses. Okay. Drinking Cristal and talking smack, when I was 24, 25. Quit playing with me. So with that being said, pay attention to the turnover at companies. You got to look to the leadership. Okay. If they don't have a certain program, they don't have a certain etiquette in the way they do things, they're just kind of like, okay, we're freestyling here. A lot of times they're winging it. Okay. And you got to look at the direction that they're going in, especially if they don't take self-accountability, if they're quick to shoot off orders and not necessarily boost the morale of the environment. You got to understand, for me, I've been in leadership, okay? I've been in supervision, and I know how to bring value to the room. Can they bring value? Can they hold themselves accountable? Because everybody is fighting for leadership, but no one wants to hold themselves accountable or hold themselves to a high standard. So enters, you're bringing in just anybody off the street. And what happens is the talent that you do have there in that space has to clean up the mess of the people that you brought in that aren't talented. You don't know how many times I've had to clean everybody else's mess up. Okay, let's keep it all the way funky donkey. You dig? So pay attention to the quote unquote leadership, that's in the room. And that can give you a clear indication of the talent that they're bringing in, because you're only a reflection of who you are. Okay, whoever you bring in, whoever you associate yourself with is a direct reflection of who you are. Okay, so going into DEI, you're going to hear these stories of failure. Let's get back to talent. Let's get back to experience. Let's get back to making sure our presentation is crisp and on point. And we have the strong background and the validation of our peers, especially peers that we've worked with in the past. That is extremely important. I can't stress that any further. Okay, not coming in expecting 100K. Are you worth even $5? Okay, so we got to get back to basics and clean it up. All right, in a minute.